Welcome to the Architectural Animation course using 3ds Max and Vray. I've been working with 3ds Max for over 10 years now, with a previous work experience of more than 80 architectural projects, including interiors, exteriors, and animations. In this course, I will teach you a step-by-step process to make your 3D architectural design come to life with animation. The goal of this course is to give you the skill set needed to move from making still shots to making great animations. This course is based on a project that I've just finished for 3 villas in a place near London called Combi Green. I broke down the process into simple steps that you can apply to any architectural project. To make it even easier, these steps were simplified into 3 courses. Each course focuses on a specific phase of creating animation videos. There are tons of tips, tricks, and techniques in this course that will save you massive amount of time and make your final product perfect. Check out the final product in the next video. When doing arc animation videos, you or your team will have to go through 3 phases to get the work done. Those phases are planning, execution, and production. In this course, we will focus entirely on phase 1, planning. We will learn the right ways to plan your project together with your client and how to calculate your pricing and the time needed to finish the job. Next, we will learn how to make a storyboard. It's a way of planning out movies on paper and making sure that this is exactly what the client needed. From there, we will continue planning our camera passes in the scene. Where exactly we want our cameras and what are the most important features we want to show. After that, we will get a bit technical in Max and we will learn some basic fundamentals of animation. Then we will move to cinematics. We will learn some famous camera movements that the professionals tend to do, as well as the techniques to do them in Max. Lastly, we will learn how to give our client a sneak peek of our movie before render, for their approvals or adjustment. So that's it for this course. After completing phase 1, you will have everything planned out for your work, and you will also have the client's approval, so the ball will be in your court then. And you will be ready for my other 2 courses, phase 2 and phase 3. Phase 2 will be how are we gonna work smartly to finish our planned tasks. We will talk about our hardware, what to buy and what is the best to upgrade to give us the best performance. We will also talk about working smart to make things light and decrease the render time. We will learn solutions for common problems that will face you, like large amount of trees and landscape elements. How to animate water features like fountains and waterfalls. How to move people and cars, and more. Phase 3 will be about rendering and post-production. We will learn about ways we can decrease our rendering time by separating light calculations from the final render, as well as controlling our frame render time however we want. We will learn how to set up network rendering and make multiple computers do the job automatically. We will also learn the trick of separating the renders of moving objects like cars and peoples and then compositing them in After Effects. We will also learn a step-by-step post-production in After Effects till we produce our final movie. There is much to learn in the upcoming courses, so get ready and let's get started. Communication with client. A good plan starts with a clear communication with your client. Whether your client is a company or an individual, you want to make it clear that you will need a contact person to be assigned from their part with whom he will be responsible for decision making and approvals down the road. It's important to keep in touch with the contact person during your work stages. Deals must be clearly written in meetings or in emails that you can come back to later. Trust me, that way of organizing stuff will save you a lot of hassles. A client might take a decision today and forget about it a week later. Same thing can happen to you. At this point, you can come back to the deals written or emailed. Your contact person will be responsible for checking your progress, providing you with any missing data, giving approvals after each phase, receiving the final product, and making sure you get paid on time. Topics you need to discuss with your client. Topic number 1, the purpose of the animation. Is it for marketing on the internet, or is it for real estate exhibition, or maybe for TV commercial? Topic number 2, the scope of work. What exactly your final project should look like? Is it exteriors only, or you gonna add some interiors and night shots as well? Do they wanna add some special video footages or just animation? How many minutes needed? Everything should be clear on that one. Topic number 3, phases of your work. Making animation movie doesn't get finished overnight. You have to be clear with your client that there are certain steps you will both go through in order to have their perfect movie they aspire. Topic number 4, timing. Based on the phases above, your speed of work, your equipments, and other team members, if you have any, you will decide the time needed for each phase and add them together, and you can estimate the time needed to finish the job. Topic number 5, pricing. Pricing can be set in rates per minute or seconds. For example, for every minute in animation, your price rate might be $2,000, and maybe they need 5 minutes movie. So your pricing will be 2,000 times 5, that's $10,000. As a bonus with this lecture, I've included my personal Word document of the quotation. This paper will keep both you and your client clear and organized. Let's take a look at the quotation. When you meet your client, you print out this paper, take it with you, and fill it up with the client. The purpose of this paper is to keep you focused and organized, and to make everything clear between you and your client. So this is the quotation. On the upper left side, we have some basic information, date, project name, and customer name. Next is the contact person information, name, mobile number, and email. Down here is the purpose of the project. Ask your client and fill in the information here. On the right hand side here, we have the scope of work. You will ask if the project will need modeling, or is it already modeled? Will it need lighting and texturing? Will it need camera animation? Will it need compositing, mixing footages with the animation? Are we going to add live videos to our animation? And if so, who is going to provide such footages? Sometimes you will need to buy some stock video footages from the internet and add it with the animation. Video editing and post-production, that's a phase you will need to color correct your videos and add music and put everything together. Voiceover is where you hire a professional to read a script that goes along with your movie. You will mark what's needed and what's not needed here, because that will be calculated later on in your timing and pricing. Next, we will go down to the work phases table. It's a table with 3 columns. One is for the work phase, one is for the assigned job, and the other is for the time needed to finish that job in working days. You will estimate the time needed for every assigned job, add them together, and you can calculate an estimated time to finish the whole movie. Next is the final movie duration. For example, 5 minutes. And your price rate per minute, for example, $3,000. So we want 5 minutes, and each minute costs $3,000, then the total fees will be $15,000. Finally, an important line down here. To be sure of the seriousness of your client, 50% down payment should be given to you upon quote approval. Another 25% will be given to you at the preview approval just before rendering. And finally, the 25% you will get upon delivery. Now we have made our deal clear, it's time to start working. Designing the storyboard. A storyboard is like a sketch plan for your video. And your video is a message that you need to send to the minds of the viewer in a clear and pleasant way. So just before designing our storyboard, we will take a moment to think about that message. Based on the communication with my client, I came up with important messages that my video will be conveying. Those important messages are the location. Those villas are in a prime location next to London and Wimbledon. So I'm thinking, let's have more focus on the Google Earth location and maybe some video footages of London. Next, the design. It's a classic luxurious design with beautiful landscape, waterfalls and swimming pool. I'm thinking that mood will be perfect with some slow classic music, maybe something with an English accent to it. Next, marketing message for the buyer. The villas are worth more than 6 million English pounds each. So I'm thinking, I gotta show them the life inside these villas. People swimming, eating, and having fun. Now comes the time for the storyboard paper. As a bonus with this lecture, I've included my personal Word document of the storyboard paper in the downloads section. Now we will design our movie here. We have 3 columns. One is for the action, one is for the duration, and one is for what we are seeing on the screen. For the action, we will start our movie with the intro. Usually the company's logo, the project logo and name, with some light video editing with After Effects. This might take around 15 seconds duration, and we might put our logos here. Next will be the location of the villas. We might use Google Earth together with After Effects to show off the location. We can use some live video footages that you can get from YouTube using YouTube Downloader, or you can buy these footages for more professional stock footages websites. Next will be the transitioning from the Google Earth to 3ds Max animation. I wanted to make some smooth transition that might take 30 seconds going from the sky in the Google Earth to where I have some clear view of the villas in Max. Next, I'm thinking there are these villa information. We might pause and display their size and specifications. Then we have the camera movements for the 3 villas. These are the ones that we are going to be rendering. We will talk about them in the next video. And the outro and cast that might take 15 seconds as well. Now let's calculate. We have here 15 plus 45, that's 1 minute. And we have another minute here, that's 2 minutes out of 5. So we have 3 minutes left. We might divide them, 1 for each villa, and never mind about the outro. We might give them these 15 seconds for free. Now you have the storyboard planned out. You get back to the contact person for approvals on the storyboard you just made. Ask for any additional data needed, like logos in high resolution. You might have some choices for the music you are going to use. You might ask for approvals on that too. Once you have the approval, it's time to sketch our camera passes for the movements here. Also, if you're working with a team, you can start dividing tasks for the team members. Other team members might get busy with the logo intro, the Google Maps, and the video footages download. For us, we will learn how to sketch our camera passes in the next video. Sketching camera passes. Now we have our storyboard figured out. And now we calculated the needed amount of animation inside Max. We have 1 minute of animation for each villa. And we have the transition from Google Earth to Max. That's another 30 seconds. Let's break down how it's done. Here is the formula. 1. Figure out the key features we want to show. 2. Divide them into small clips. 3. Determine the time needed for each clip. For example, we have the layout for our villas here. Let's start by the first villa. Key features. We have nice entrance, elevation and drop-off area here. We have back elevation here and pool here. Divide them. It's better to break down the animation into small clips than one big clip going from one feature to another. So in our case, we will need one camera here showing the front, one camera there showing the back, and one here showing the pool and the waterfalls. Depending on your own project, you will decide the key features and the cameras needed. Time the cameras. We have 60 seconds for this villa. We need 3 cameras. We might divide them equally, 20 seconds for each, or not equally, depending on your project. You might also start throwing some ideas, like in camera 1, a BMW entering the gate. Camera of the pool, I want someone swimming here and someone eating there. Now that we have the formula to sketch our camera passes, apply that to your project and then we can translate that in Max. Basics of animation in 3D as Max. A movie consists of multiple photos, appears in front of your eyes so quickly so you can feel the movement. In Max, that photo you rendered is called a frame. For 1 second of animation, you will need to render at least 15 frames so you can feel the movement. For higher quality animation, the frames per second rate that's called FPS, we would use 30 frames per second. Let's open up Max. At the bottom here, we have the timeline that consists of 100 frames. And we have here this tiny button called Time Configuration. If we press it, we will have the time configuration window opens up. We can change the frame rate from here. We have here some international standard configurations like NTSC and PAL. NTSC is 30 frames per second and PAL is 25. We can also use custom frames per second from here. For our movie, we will use NTSC. On the right here, we have the time display. We can display our timeline in frames or in minutes and seconds. I prefer to display it in frames. In the middle, we have some playback options. For when we press play, do we want to play it in real time or slower or faster? Down there we have the animation options. We have the start time and the end time. We can change the length of the timeline from here. For example, if we want to change the default 100 frames to a 20 seconds timeline, we will need to make it 20 seconds times 30 frames per second. So the end time should be 600. Here is a quick tip. You can change the length of the timeline if you press and hold Ctrl plus Alt plus right click with your mouse and move it to increase the desired number of frames. Now let's learn how to animate. We will start simple by making a box. We want to animate this box moving from here to there in 1 second. To do that, we need to press Auto key. When it's pressed, you will see a red frame surrounding your viewport. That means it is recording. We want to animate 1 second, so we will go to frame 30 and move the box to where we want it. By moving the slider, we can see that Max automatically created animation for us. If we want it to play in real time, we will go to frame 0 and press play. Notice the red mark at frame 30 here. That is called a keyframe. A keyframe holds a recording of the object state at that point of time. So at frame 0, the keyframe records the position of the box here. And at frame 30, the keyframe records the position of the box there. And in between, Max creates the animation automatically. And that's simply the concept of animation in 3ds Max. We can apply this concept to other transforms like rotation and scale. Let's apply rotation animation on a new box. Select the box, go to a desired frame and rotate. Max creates animation for that rotation. Let's apply scale animation on a new box. Select the box, go to a desired frame and scale. Max automatically creates the animation. All spinners in Max can be animated as well with the same concept. For example, in a box, we have spinner for its parameters, like length, width, and height. If we go to a desired frame and change the length, you will notice red brackets appears at the spinners here. And since the auto key is on, the animation will be created. We can also go to another point of time and animate the widths as well. If we move the slider, we can see animation of both width and height. Most modifiers have spinners in them that can be animated. For example, we can animate bend angle like this. We can also animate a gizmo inside a modifier, like the slice plane inside the slice modifier. If we choose the option to remove top, then we go to a desired frame with the auto key on and move the slice plane up like that. You can see Max has made a slice animation of that object. Materials and lighting can be animated as well. It's all in these 3 steps. Open the auto key, move in time, change the spinner. For example, if we want to animate intensity of the spotlight here, we will press auto key, make sure it's recording, go to a desired frame and change the spinner. Same for materials. 3 steps. 1. Open the auto key. 2. Move in time. 3. Change the spinner. And maybe that spinner is inside the material itself. By pressing M and open the material editor, we can animate the material that is applied to that box. In the diffuse slot, I applied noise map. Inside that noise map, there is a spinner that is called phase. It changes the noise pattern like a moving waves in a water. So if we change the spinner and animated it, we can see animation of material applied. Another quick tip here. The color of the keyframe for move is red. The color of the keyframe of rotation is green, and the color of the keyframe of scale is blue. The color of keyframe of any other spinners is black. What if we want to change the speed of the animation? Like the rotation here, I want to make it rotate slower. Simply, I will select the box, go to the keyframe and give it more time. Instead of its rotating 3 rotations in 1 second, I will give it more time and make it complete the animation in frame 60 instead of 30. Now the animation is slower. Same applies if I want it quicker. I will give it less time and move the keyframe to frame 15 instead. Now the animation is faster. We can also add multiple keyframes, changing the state of the object from one state to the other We can also copy keyframes by pressing Shift and drag with the left mouse button. We can use that space down here to accurately move the slider to a specific frame by typing its number here. For example, type 75 and enter. We can also extract a keyframe from an existing animation. For example, if we have this box here moving from frame 0 to 100, let's extract frame 60. We go here and type 60 and press enter. We are ready to extract the keyframe here. We have this button with a key icons on it called set key. When we press it, it extracts the state of the object to a keyframe here. It doesn't change the animation in one way or another, but now we have the option of moving this keyframe on my timeline. That will cause a variation of speed. For example, if we move frame 60 to frame 20, the animation will move fast and then it slows down. If we move it the other way, let's say we moved it to frame 90, the animation will start slower and then it speeds up at the end. That's it for the basics. It's very important to understand these concepts because we will use that a lot in the upcoming lectures. In previous lesson, we learned the basics of animation in 3ds Max. In this lesson, we will learn how to fine-tune our animation. Here is an example. Let's say we have a ball and we want that ball to bounce on that ground. Let's use the basic keyframe technique. We select the ball, go to frame 50, open the auto key. We can use the front viewport. Move it till it touches the ground, then go to frame 100 and move it back up as if it has bounced. If we press play, we will get something like this. It doesn't look like bouncing, does it? Well, to solve this issue, we will have to use the curve editor. Let's open the curve editor. Go to Graph Editor and press Track View Curve Editor. The curve editor window opens, and as the ball is still selected, we can see a graph presentation of its animation. Our animation values is presented in a curve through time. So in this graph, up and down is a change of value. Left-right is a change of time in frames. And since we are only animating position of the ball moving up and down, we will see on the left X position, Y position and Z position are highlighted. If we clicked on one of them, we can isolate and edit its curve. As you can see, X position curve is flat, Y position curve is flat because our ball is only moving in Z position. And if we moved our timeline bar, we will notice that the keyframe with the smallest value is where the ball touches the ground. And the keyframe with the largest value is the keyframe where the ball is in the air. And in between is the curve of movement. To make the bouncing effect, we will need to edit this curve. The problem with this curve is that it is so smooth down here at frame 50. In real life, when a ball bounces, it hits the ground and jumps back up so quickly. We have a set of tools here called key tangents that does the trick. Key tangents lets you control the curves between keyframes. Select the desired keyframe, and if you hovered over the tools here, you will see a mini text that describes that tangent preset. Press Set Tangent to Fast and press play. And that's much better bouncing effect. We will continue to fine-tune it, but first let's get familiar with the Curve Editor interface in the next video. Curve Editor interface. Let's take a closer look on our Curve Editor. In the middle top, we have some tools called navigation controls. Their job is to give you a better view of your curves. For example, we have pan and we have zoom extent horizontal and zoom extent vertical. We have zoom and zoom region. We also have a button to isolate a curve. We can also use our mouse wheel while using pan to zoom in and out. If you press Ctrl on the keyboard while zooming in and out with the mouse wheel, it will zoom in and out horizontally. On the upper left hand side, we have keyframe control tools, like moving keyframes or drawing your own graph manually. Notice that any change you do in the curve editor will reflect down here on the timeline. First, we have a move tool for the keyframes. It moves the keyframe anywhere in the graph, but if we press Ctrl, it will only change the value. If we release Ctrl, the keyframe can be moved in every direction. Notice when you move a keyframe in Curve Editor, it moves in the timeline as well, but still there is another one at frame 50. That happens because we only moved the keyframe on the Z position curve, and we still have keyframes remaining on X position and Y position. So if we deleted the keyframes on the X and Y positions, we notice that the keyframe at 50 no longer exists. We also have the option to type in the values here. Moving the keyframe in the curve editor affects both position and timing of our bouncing ball. It's not bouncing at frame 50 anymore, and it's not touching the ground. To move it back to frame 50, select the keyframe and type 50 next to frame and press enter. To make it touch the ground again at that frame, I don't know what value to put, so I will open Auto Key and move it in Z position till it touches the ground. There is also a tool that lets you add keyframes on curves. For now, that's all you need to know about key controls. Let's move on to key tangents. We tried set tangent to fast in previous video. Let's examine the others. The first two buttons lets you control the curves manually. The next 5 are just common presets that doesn't give you a manual control. If you want to manipulate the preset, press the preset and then press Set Tangent to Spline. The difference between Set Tangent to Spline and Set Tangent to Auto is that Auto will set the tangent back to its original settings. So if you want to manipulate a preset, better set tangent to spline. The last 2 buttons are Break Tangent and Unify Tangent. Unify Tangent locks the angle between the 2 tangents, while Break Tangent lets you control each tangent separately from the other. Now that we learned the interface and the tools of the curve editor, let's bring it to action in the next video. Fine-tuning the next level. In the previous lesson, we made our ball bounce 1 time. In this lesson, we will let it bounce multiple times till it comes to a full stop. To do that, we will repeat this curve here with decreasing value in every bounce. For other bounces, the ball will touch the ground at the Z value same as frame 50. If we select frame 50, then this value here is the ground level. If we copy this value, then go to frame 100 and paste, we can see the ball bounce once and then rests on the ground. To make another bounce in between, we can add keyframe using the Add Key tool and place it on the curve. In this case, we want the ball at that keyframe to touch the ground, so we have a bounce up and then touches the ground, bounce back up again and rest on the ground. To make this keyframe touches the ground, we will paste the value of frame 50 and press enter. Now when this keyframe is at the ground, there is no bouncing between this keyframe and the last one, because the curve between them is a straight line. To fix that, we will have to create a hump here. Select the keyframe and set tangent to spline. If we move the tangents, we find out that they are unified. We will have to press Break Tangents and move each handle independently, creating the hump here a little less than the bounce before. If we move the slider, we can see a small bounce and then a smaller bounce. We can then increase our timeline with Ctrl plus Alt plus right click on our mouse and continue our bouncing on a larger timeline. We can repeat the same steps to add another bounce. So as you can see, every time the ball bounces, its power fades and also the curve becomes less. If we press play, we can see the bouncing until it gets to a full stop. It's working fine, but as you can see, the first hump falls way higher than the other 3 humps. This effect might happen in heavy metal ball, and not a basketball or tennis ball. Let's give it a try to change that effect. We have a hump that is too high for the others. Let's bring it down, press Ctrl and move. Maybe edit its handles as well. Just a tip here. If we use the Set Tangent to Fast preset on these humps, the curve returns flat. To let Set Tangent to Fast preset work correctly, there has to be another keyframes here in the middle with higher values than the ones down here. Let's add keyframes and move them up. Let's now select the ground keyframes and press Set Tangent to Fast. Now it worked correctly. Set Tangent to Fast needs to be between ground frames and air frames. It doesn't work between 2 ground frames. Let's press play. It is bouncing nicely, but it takes too long falling. To fix that, select the keyframes in the curve editor or the timeline, they are the same, and move them closer to the first keyframe, making this area smaller. We can also decrease the value of the first frame. Let's press play. It's now bouncing realistically, but what if we want it to bounce more aggressively? Well, there is a tool for that called Region Key Tool. This tool lets you select a region of keyframes and scale it either vertically or horizontally. If we press and hold that box here and pulls up, you can see it scales the values of all frames. If we press play, we find the ball jumps higher. Let's scale it even more. Notice it scales all values, but the problem is that it scales from 0, so the frames that touches the ground with values 30 something, after scaling they become 80 something, they leave the ground. So now we made it bounce more, but now it's not on the ground. Well, let's increase the bouncing even more. And let's fix the not on the ground issue. Simply, we will go to a frame where we want the ball to touch the ground, and while the auto key is closed, we will move the ball. So when you move an animated object while the auto key is closed, the whole animation moves along with it. Now we have our bouncing ball back on the ground. Another useful use for the region key tool is to increase or decrease the time for selected animation. Let's select our animation using region key tool and click on one of these boxes and drag to decrease the time and make the animation faster. Or if we drag the other way around and increased the time, we can make the animation go slower. So that's it for the curve editor. I am sure it will come handy in fine-tuning your animations.